Hello, everyone, and welcome. I have the privilege today of interviewing Mark Bennett, a member of the Aetherius Society. So, Mark, I would just like to say that as a student, I'm doing my own independent qualitative research separate from the university. I have an interest in studying communities of interest, but I want to study more mainstream organizations. So, is it okay for an hour? Are you okay for an hour?
Yeah, that should
Uh,
be fine.
Okay. So my first question today is, can you please tell me about how you became interested and involved in this movement? What were your personal experiences?
Yes, I was interested in spirituality from quite a young age. I remember as a child, I was very curious about religion and psychic phenomena, anything like that. And I, around the age of about 14, I started becoming interested in UFOs and aliens as well. And I became convinced, I can't remember the exact timeline, but I became convinced that the meaning of life and the question of extraterrestrial life were linked. It was just some kind of intuitive feeling within me. And around that time, I was watching television one day. It was a Horizon documentary about the planet Venus. And there was a short segment about the Aetherius Society's beliefs. And we, in fact, believe that there is intelligent life on Venus, but at a higher frequency of vibration.
Okay. Um, that's very interesting. Can you tell me about the actual movement? This UFO. You referred to UFO and extraterrestrial life. Can you tell me a bit more about that? You know what the Aetherius Society believes that.
Yeah, sure. We believe in that there is intelligent life outside of Earth in this solar system. In fact, the life is far more intelligent than life on Earth. Um, the reason why science has not detected this life as yet is because it doesn't exist on this plane, this same physical plane that we exist on. So if you went to Mars or Venus as an astronaut and you walked around, chances are you would see no sign whatsoever of the higher life that lives there, unless it particularly chose to manifest itself for you for whatever reason, but that would be highly unlikely. It would be like looking in the basement for someone who lived in a penthouse. You're not going to find them. So this is not these planes of existence that these beings live on are not they're not sort of airy fairy. They are physical realms, but it's a different kind of physicality to the physicality of our plane. And there will come a time when science, even on this earth, will be advanced enough to detect these planes and the life that exists there.
Very interesting. So I had a look at the website last night, and I discovered that there is such a thing as cosmic masters. Can you tell me a bit about
Yes,
that, please?
yes, we refer to uh, how can I put it, enlightened alien intelligences as cosmic masters. And these are the beings who exist on these other planes of other planets in this solar system and beyond. In fact, throughout the galaxy and the universe. There are not all beings, of course, but there are beings who are much more advanced than us, and we call them cosmic masters. These are beings who have realized the God spark within them. Within everything in creation, there is the spark of God, the divine spark. And these beings have gone within and discovered this most, highest aspect of themselves.
Thanks very much for sharing that. So as well as you referred to the cosmic masters there, but I just wanted to get into the more specifics. Do you believe that that the likes of Jesus, does he get referred to as a cosmic master?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we believe that Jesus was a cosmic master, along with various other beings, some very well known, like Buddha or Confucius, Krishna, Moses, and Peter, and some who virtually no one's ever heard of. Um, these beings come from other planets, and they chose for part of their consciousness to be born in an earth body. So they have the same, or they had when they were alive, exactly the same kind of bodies as us. The body and the brain structure is terrestrial, but the consciousness is extraterrestrial. And these beings chose to be born among us, not for their own sake, but to help us in various ways, including teaching, but certainly not limited to teaching. And they gave essentially a unified message, but in different forms, depending on their audience at the time. They would, for example, the message that Jesus gave was in one form, and the message of Buddha would have been given in quite a different way, because apparently Buddha's audience was much more educated, so would be able to appreciate truths in a different form. Another reason for the differences in the teachings is that what we have today, unfortunately, in many cases, is not the pure, unadulterated message as given at the time by these beings, whether through error or simply the teachings being lost and forgotten, or unfortunately, in some cases, deliberately distorted. It's pretty obvious that a message given 2,000 years ago isn't going to have survived 100% intact.
Okay. Is the Aetherius Society a registered religion, and is there a religious spiritual manual?
Our registration would depend on the laws of the country where the Aetherius Society is. We have in London, we have buildings registered as places of religious worship, but in the law of this country, there isn't a registration as such as a religion. So we're actually an unincorporated association, is our legal status in this country. We're non-profit, but obviously, we're not a business, but it's not possible to be registered as a religion per se. That category just doesn't exist here. But it may well do in some of the other countries where we have headquarters and branch groups. I wouldn't know myself, but we have places in America, in Canada, Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia. So I should imagine probably in each country the registration is different.
Thanks for answering that. So I slipped in another question accidentally, but it was religious spiritual manuals. Do you possess any
Yes.
manuals?
I've nothing against the term manual, but it's not a term that we use. We have a vast body of teachings, actually, some of which are more core to our belief system than others. For example, the 12 blessings and the 9 freedoms are 2 of our most important books, and 2 that we use a great deal to explain and practice our religious beliefs.
Okay. And what is there? Is there a punishment and reward system? Does that exist?
Not really. No, I would say no. Uh, we certainly don't talk about punishment, but there is such a thing as karma, and karma is not about punishment, which many people think it is. Karma is about giving us the lessons that we need in life. Some of those lessons will be pleasant, some will be unpleasant, and some in between. Karma is an all-pervasive, all-just law that applies to everyone and everything equally throughout creation for all eternity. So, in terms of reward, if mankind were to work together in peace and cooperation and build a better world, one karmic result of that would be that we would have a better world. So that, you could say, would be the reward for our efforts. Whereas at the moment and throughout our history, we have wars all over the place. We have people hoarding vast quantities of wealth while other people are starving, etc. We all know about the wickedness that goes on this plane, and this is of our own making. People often try to blame God for this, but it's us that have done it, and it's us that will have to put it right if we want a better world.
Thanks for that. Well, I know. Well, we all know that there is quite a lot of terrorism. You have 9/11, and you have the controversy it sparked off. A lot of people had different ideas about it. What did you think about that? For
Sorry,
example,
I think you may have cut out a bit there. I missed after 9/11.
yeah. So a lot of people had different ideas about, it being God's punishment against America for her sins.
Okay, well, God doesn't punish people. People tend to imagine.
Well, I'm just telling you because some people out there had that idea in America. You know the way that the more fundamentalist groups.
We don't have much in common with fundamentalist Christians.
Okay. Well, okay. So let's move on then to the next question. What is it that, on a human level, that motivates you to engage in this organization?
Well, in the Aetherius Society, we believe that the work that we do is very important because we work in cooperation with beings from other planets in various different ways. Of course, just spreading the teachings of the Cosmic Masters is itself extremely important. But even more important than that is the cosmic missions that we perform, which enable vast quantities of spiritual energy to be released, which brings about various positive results for mankind. One example of that would be that when certain energy is released from an extraterrestrial source through our spiritual equipment, this energy will help to bring about a rise in consciousness of mankind. And if consciousness is risen, all other problems will be taken care of. The problems on Earth are brought about by the fact that we don't think in a spiritual way, and therefore we don't act in a spiritual way. In fact, quite the reverse much of the time. If our consciousnesses were risen, we wouldn't want to do bad things. We'd see the futility, we'd see the pain, we'd see that it was a backward step that wasn't going to help anyone, not even ourselves. So it's all a question really of consciousness. So this energy is a real thing. It's not like sometimes people might talk about spiritual energy like it's a kind of a metaphor or a symbolic of a mood or something. To us, it's something absolutely as real as anything, as real as electricity, if not more so. It's the most important form of energy there is, and you can even, if you have a little bit of sensitivity, and it's not that difficult actually to get that sensitivity, you can even feel this energy. And I have been amazed on numerous occasions at the tangible sensations of this energy when I've been engaged in certain of our spiritual activities. And I was born into, let's say, very ordinary kind of belief system. You're just normal, standard Church of England, not particularly religious family. And I never imagined in a million years that I would have any kind of spiritual experience. I thought I'd think about spirituality and learn about it, study it, but I didn't think I'd have a real experience for myself. I thought that was for special people, for people who were born psychic or who were chosen by God or whatever it is that their belief system is. But because we wouldn't refer to it as being chosen by God. But of course, at that time, that was the kind of thing that I was thinking in a very ordinary kind of a way. So I didn't imagine that I would ever experience anything like that at all. I didn't even sort of hope for it. So when I started practicing Aetherius Society practices, such as the 12 blessings, such as mantra done in certain ways, very quickly I began to become aware of my aura. I couldn't see it, but I could feel it while I was doing these practices. And I didn't know very much at that time, and I wondered what was happening. It wasn't like I thought, well, now I'm going to experience the sensation of the energy flowing through my aura. I wasn't expecting anything. I had to actually ask somebody to explain to me what was happening. I also became aware of certain chakras, such as the solar plexus chakra, and again, it came as a complete surprise to me. I didn't know what the experience was. So that was quite, I'd say that was virtually a turning point for me in my journey when I thought, wow, this actually is something real. This is more than just belief for belief's sake. Something is actually happening.
Thank you for sharing that. So earlier on we talked about cosmic masters, but what about more contemporary figures? I'll give you some examples. The likes of Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, Osho, or
Vaguely, yes, I know a little bit.
Or Alan Watts, or J.D. Krishnamurti. Are those figures to be considered in the same light, or what would your take be on those figures? Those individuals?
Yeah, let me just think how to answer that. We know that certain people definitely were cosmic masters, but we don't know who definitely is not a cosmic master. I didn't know all of those people you just listed, but my own personal opinion is that you mentioned Osho and someone else, Krishnamurti. I've looked at their teachings a little bit, and my personal opinion is that they would not be cosmic masters. And the other gentleman, it was
Alan Watts.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with him, so I couldn't comment at all. There may be people who are cosmic masters who we don't know are cosmic masters. But cosmic masters are very, very few and far between. Certainly not the case that all spiritual teachers are cosmic masters, nothing like it. I'm not aware, for example, of any cosmic masters currently being incarnate on Earth and mixing with people in a normal way. There may be some, but if there are, we don't know about them. The last cosmic master to be born on Earth and to mix freely with the public that we know of was Dr. George King, who was the founder of the Aetherius Society. And he did not publicly reveal that he was a cosmic master, but he did publicly reveal that he had contacts with cosmic masters currently residing on other planets in this system, and in some cases beyond this solar system.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. So what does it mean to you to be part of this group as a man, as perhaps a father, a husband, and an employee? I know it's a personal question, but what does it mean to you to be part of the Aetherius Society with all those different social roles? If you have.
Well, okay. Well, I think I'm probably in a rather different position than to many of the other people you might have spoken to, because I'm not married and I'm not a father, and I am an employee, but I'm an employee of the Aetherius Society. So my life very much revolves around this organisation. It doesn't mean to say that I never do anything else. I have friends who are not involved in the Aetherius Society at all, and of course I see them, and I see family who are not in the Aetherius Society either. But yeah, I have to say most of my life though is involved with my work for this organisation.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. So what are you aiming to? You mentioned about cosmic enlightenment, I suppose. So is that the aim? The aim of the game is ultimately to be enlightened. What are your personal goals as a member? What would you like to achieve as part of this organisation?
What we want to achieve is we want to help the world in cooperation with the Cosmic Masters. That's our goal. These are very dangerous times. Nuclear war is a constant threat. There are numerous so-called natural disasters. There's a lot of political confusion. And there's rampant suffering of virtually every kind all around the world. So we want to make a difference. Our goal ultimately is to help to bring about a new age of peace and freedom for all on this planet. And that comes first. That is our motivation. I don't think anyone is in the Aetherius Society just for their own personal enlightenment or salvation. Though enlightenment is also a goal. It's quite a distant goal, I feel, at the moment. It's enlightenment to us is a very, very elevated state. Some people, even some good, genuine spiritual teachers, may use the term enlightenment when referring to a much more basic, readily achievable state. But in our teachings and terminology, enlightenment is something that would take several lives to attain. It involves complete dedication for a long time, and a lot of self-sacrifice as well. But the rewards, we're told, make it all worth it. It is freedom from ignorance.
Okay.
to state the obvious, but what a wonderful thought to be free from ignorance, to know God, to not have any kind of confusion about the true nature of the soul and the divine spirit.
Okay, so I would like to get on to the concept of aliens and ufology a bit more. You'd mentioned about cosmic masters, but that's something slightly, is that something different to aliens? I know that in the video I was watching about the Aetherius Society, it said worshippers of aliens, but is that a misnomer? Is that
Um,
accurate?
as, as not really accurate, no, because we worship God. We don't worship aliens. We revere aliens, certain alien intelligences. It's not to say that all aliens are good. There are hostile alien intelligences in the universe, obviously. And actually, we've been under threat of. They've wanted to take over this planet, some of these beings, and we've actually been protected by the benevolent alien intelligences in this system. Sorry, I may have lost track of your question. What was your question?
Oh, no, you answered the first part. The other part was about ufology, UFOs, and...
Okay, so UFOs, well, the word UFO means unidentified flying object. So not all unidentified flying objects are extraterrestrial spacecraft, but some are. There are so many sightings that have been well documented, sometimes by multiple witnesses, credible people, military personnel, pilots, religious people with no particular belief in UFOs. There have been all over the world so many. It really defies logic to claim that this phenomenon is not real.
Interesting. And have you ever witnessed anything like that?
I have not, no. I know people who have. Obviously, I'd like to, of course, but I'd rather that if there was a sighting, that it was that somebody who didn't believe in UFOs was to have such a sighting, because then it might open their minds to the wider universe beyond the narrow confines of this planet.
Okay. I really have enjoyed our conversation. I've got most of my questions answered that I've written down here. Is there anything that you have to ask from to me? Do you have any questions for me?
Well, I'd like to know more about what the goal of your research is.
Well, again, it's totally neutral. I just have an interest in studying cults, but sociologists tend to use new religious movements as the main term today.
Yeah, we would class ourselves as a new religious movement, and so would anyone who studied us with an open mind.
Yeah.
Because the word cult has such negative connotations that simply don't apply to us. We don't try and control the lives of our members. We don't engage in illegal activity. We don't do brainwashing. All the kind of things that you think of being associated with cults are completely off our agenda. The only thing about us is that we do appreciate that our beliefs are unusual. But I think they seem unusual. They are unusual on this earth. They seem strange sometimes because we live in such a strange world. But as time goes on, we believe that it's extremely likely that they will become gradually more and more acceptable. Whenever something new comes along, people always find it outlandish in the beginning. Look what happened to the Christians. They had a very, very difficult time. They were being put to death Thank God we don't have that to contend with. Just people often just not really grasping what we're about. Um, if you think about it, though, for example, we believe that Jesus came from a higher vibratory sphere of the planet Venus. Now, this seems like a kind of headline of what a weird thing to believe. And however, at the same time, you have hundreds of millions of people around the world who are quite ready to believe, or at least accept the concept, that Jesus was the one and only Son of God, despite all the questions, unanswered questions, that raises. Why did God have one and only, one single Son at that point in history? What about the people who don't know about that Son? Who was Buddha? Was he a son too? No, he can't have been, because there was only one. These kind of questions that leave people, well, people don't seem to ask them enough. And if they do ask them, unfortunately, and they're not satisfied by the answer, very often they might turn to atheism, which I think is a shame. Because just because Orthodox Christianity does not answer the questions properly, it doesn't mean to say that there aren't answers that are very important.
And this clearly illustrates as well, you were saying about atheism and theism. Well, if you look on the one hand, you have the concept of God in Christianity, whereas if you look on the other hand in Buddhism, I don't know enough about it, but I have read that it's basically Buddha was an atheist. So there's two different poles. Is that a What do you make of that?
Well, we don't believe that Buddha was an atheist, and I don't think that all Buddhists believe that either.
It's just
Uh,
something I read.
well, yes, no, I have come across it. I'm not disputing it as something that people believe. But I think one problem arises when it depends a bit on what you think God is. And if you think that God is an old man on a cloud who is vengeful and only loves certain people because they go to the right church, and all that kind of nonsense, that's one image of God. It's a false image of God. And if you then decide not to believe in that, some people might automatically then think that they're an atheist. But that's not what being an atheist means. Being an atheist means rejecting any concept of God. So our concept of God is that God is the essence of all things. And God is literally all things, is the totality of existence. And yet even more than that. So this is very, very different to some kind of personal, human-like intelligence. God is not a person. God does not look like us. God is infinitely greater than that kind of very limited concept of what God is. So I'm sure that Buddha would not have believed in a vengeful old man on a cloud kind of a thing. So maybe that's what people might mean if they refer to Buddha as having been atheist. But I don't know. You'd have to ask them. It's not really for me to guess what their interpretation is.
Well, Mark, I've really enjoyed this conversation of ours. It's been very enriching, and I believe it will help me with my own personal interests and development. Um, I think that's it for now. You've answered a lot of questions very in depth and very insightful, and I really have gained a lot of information from you on this organization and your own personal experiences. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Um, yeah, I think maybe I should just add, which we haven't talked that much about, is Dr. George King's contacts with the Cosmic Masters. Um, he he was an Englishman who was born to an apparently quite ordinary family. They weren't very wealthy. His father was a school teacher, and his mother did various different kind of small business kind of things, just to earn a little bit of money. She had a lot of interest in spirituality, and her mother had actually been was then a very accomplished medium and psychic. And George King was brought up in various different parts of England, and he was interested in spirituality and became a Quaker at quite a young age. And then he was a conscientious objector during the Second World War, during the Blitz, and worked as a fireman during the Blitz. Around the end of the Second World War, he decided to devote himself completely to yoga. Yoga being not just, of course, physical exercises, but the higher forms of yoga, being mantra, kundalini yoga, and entering higher states, ultimately the highest state of all, cosmic consciousness, seedless samadhi. And he attained these higher states, and by virtue of this ability of being able to enter this very highly elevated state of trance, he was chosen by the cosmic masters to be a trance medium for their messages to Earth. So he would enter this highly elevated positive trance state, and then they would speak through him. They would send thought impulses, which he would then translate into English, of course using his own knowledge of the English language and his own voice box. But nevertheless, each cosmic master who speaks through him seems to convey a different kind of personality by their intonation and the way they speak, in general, the kind of language they use. For example, there's a cosmic master, Mars Sector 6, who is sounds very authoritative, has quite a deep, definite voice. And you have the Master Aetherius, after whom the society is named, who speaks in a much more conversational way. And you have the Master Jesus, who talks in a very loving, devotional way that conveys, I would say, a very spiritual approach to emotion, positive spiritual emotion and feeling. And these beings gave messages through Dr. George King in this way and in other ways too, and various other cosmic masters as well also gave information through Dr. King from 1954 until Dr. King passed away in 1997. So we have a vast and unique library of spiritual teachings, the vast majority of which were recorded, audio recorded, so you can actually hear the words of these great cosmic masters as they were spoken. So there's no risk of distortion or forgetting what they said or writing it down wrongly or what have you. And these are some of the greatest teachings ever given to Earth, and the vast majority of them are freely available to anyone who has a sincere interest in truth, in the meaning of life, in personal enlightenment, and most of all, in saving the world. I think I'll end on that note, Chad.
Okay, thanks very much, Mark. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It was definitely worthwhile, and thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chad. All the best.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.